Okay. Good morning, all of you. So, like I said, we will just jump over from that unit of genetics in evolution to this microbes uh, or microbiology part of it, which is a very small chapter. And it mainly talks about how these microbes are being useful in various aspects of the human welfare. So the microbes in human welfare. This is the content that is in the syllabus. Most of it, especially the major chunk in the household product, that has been removed, but the names of the bacteria they still remain in the syllabus. So we will have a look at it. So the major aspect of this chapter is where all these bacteria are being used. So for example, industrial production, sewage treatment, energy generation, and the biocontrol agent, biofertilizer, and antibiotics. Antibiotics to quite a great extent like has been removed. Like if you see, I have cut this part, especially the penicillin and discovery use. But yeah, most of it still remains within the syllabus. So, and it's more of a factual, there is nothing to understand, it's more of a rote learning kind of chapter, and also relatively very small. So we'll just try to finish this like as soon as possible, and then we'll go back to the evolution part. So again, you are very much aware of what microbes are and so on. So these are the microscopic organisms in terms of definition that can only be seen with the microscope. Includes bacteria, protozoa, fungi, viruses, viroids, and prions. I'm not sure if you remember the viroids and the prions. So these viroids, these are the small viral particles, and prions are these protein particles, and they have the ability to change certain like aspects of the cells, and that's how they are also included within this whole category. They are not the microbes as such, but they are still included in this category. Understand the whole mechanism of these usage of different things. uh, yeah, and of course this fact we know that they can cause large number of diseases in all the different species, including human, animal, and plant. uh, One of the first virus which was identified in plant that you know of is tobacco mosaic virus, right? It was identified in the tobacco plant. It looked like mosaic structure, and that's why it was named TMV. And other disadvantages, in a way, they can spoil the food, but or even other material, for example leather and so on, or wood. But not all of them they are harmful. There is quite a lot of bacteria which are more useful than they are harmful. So these are just few examples of the bacteria that you would already know of. Some of the viral particles and some of the protozoas that we know: amoeba, paramecium, and so on. Viral particles, again HIV virus or herpes virus and so on. So these are just few examples that is the I have kept it for your information, and no one would ask, but yeah, still, like, it's MCQ, so anything can come randomly from this chapter. So we'll be looking at the first aspect in terms of usage of these microbes in the industrial production, and that particular branch is actually called as industrial microbiology. So it is a branch of biotechnology and microbiology which mainly deals with the study of various organisms and its application in the industrial processes. So in short, use of organism in the industrial processes and so on, that is called as industrial microbiology, or the study of that part is called as industrial microbiology. Now, usually in the large scale industrial processes, these microbes are very much used. So, simplest example I can give you is of insulin. Now, I assume that you would be aware that how much of the insulin is required usually, like by the patients, the diabetic patients. So, to synthesize something like that, it needs certain microorganisms, and that's a very large scale affair. So to have something like that, it will be required like microbes are required which have relatively shorter span of time So within, let's say, if we try to extract the insulin from one of the organisms, let's say horse or rabbit or so on, the amount that we will get within a certain time span will be far, far lesser compared to the microorganisms if we do it within the same amount of time. Because microbes, they have relatively shorter doubling time, right? And that way they can multiply. So one bacteria, even if we count as one molecule of insulin, still over with just within 24 hours, we will have millions of copies of these bacteria. So ultimately millions of copies of protein molecule. So that way we get really good yield from these microbes at large scale industrial processes. So there are numerous industrial products which are derived from these microbial processes. For example, food additives. Food additives means they are required in the food production. For example, preservatives which are added in the food, or certain chemicals which are added in the food, color, or any of those things. They are synthesized at large scale industrial level. Alcoholic and non-alcoholic beverages. Now this is one of the, like, very what we say, a big industry in terms of use of microbes at the for the welfare of human. Again, we can debate about that whether alcohol is for human welfare or not, but still that one product is like it's been synthesized at a very large scale. Biofuels, this is upcoming field. Most of the rice husk or different kinds of grasses or different kinds of plants, they are being used to synthesize ethanol or any kind of petroleum products, so that they can be replaced with the current petrol and diesel system, and that is what is biofuel. Metabolites, some of the metabolites they can be utilized. So for example, let's say a particular chemical is there in the presence of microbes, and that is being degraded, and that metabolite we are using it for certain beneficial purposes. Or biofertilizer, for example composting, which is an example of biofertilization, right? So that means living organisms, they are used as fertilizers, so that is biofertilizer. Few chemicals, enzymes, and other bioactive molecules. Again, there are quite a few enzymes which are being used and which are synthesized from this bacteria, which we'll see one by one all of these. Not just bacteria, microbes. Vaccines and other antibiotics to kill or retard the growth of disease-causing microbes. Again, some of the microbes, they themselves are being used to produce antibiotics so that other pathogenic bacteria or microbes, they can be killed. And same is the case with vaccine as well. Vaccines, like let's say if these are just protein coat, then they can be synthesized within the bacterial cell, and then they are being extracted. So there are like various usage of these microbes in the industrial production. So the commonly known examples. Now, one of the most important thing that you need to remember with this chapter is you need to remember all the names of the microbes. Whatever we are going to see in whole of this chapter, you will have to remember all of them. So we know that yeast, it has been used in the production of beverages like wine, beer, whiskey, brandy, rum. So again, another I don't know, advantage or disadvantage, even if you know or don't know, you will get to know all the types of alcoholic drinks in this chapter. So that is like so the yeast is being produced. So yeast will produce the ethanol by the method of alcoholic fermentation. Fermentation is nothing but the biochemical process that happens within a particular organism, and that leads to certain byproduct, right? That is the fermentation process. So in case of this yeast, that is specifically in the production of ethanol by the method of alcoholic fermentation. The commonly used yeast that we know of is Saccharomyces cerevisiae. So that is the name. So Saccharomyces cerevisiae is very commonly used, which is called as brewer's yeast, that is used in the brewing industry, right? So that's why it is called as brewer's yeast. Again, this S dot means Saccharomyces, right? Now, most of the times we use short forms. So Saccharomyces ellipsoides, right? That is a wine yeast. That means it is used in the production of wine. Again, Saccharomyces pyriformis, that is the ginger and ale yeast. So there are different kinds of fermented product. Again, I'm not sure if you have heard of it, but there are these ales, which is, I guess, typical to Germany. I assume that's where they are, or at least Europe that I know. So that particular fermented product, which is like a beer, but again nowhere close to beer, but in that category of alcoholic drinks, that is Saccharomyces pyriformis. And Saccharomyces sake, that is the sake yeast. Sake is again a Japanese drink, which is again alcoholic drink. It is again kind of close to rice wine. So like that is what is Saccharomyces sake. It's not sake, by the way, because that's the pronunciation of sake is something else and the word means something else, but this is specifically pronounced as sake. And again, I assume that you would have heard of this. Fruit juices, they are used for preparing the wine and brandy. Now, so different starting product, different microbes, and the of course the out product will be something else. So fruit juices, when they are used, specifically wine and brandy, wine is more on the sweeter side of the alcoholic drink. So that's why it is usually prepared from the fruit juices. And of course, I am not sure if you are aware, but most of the people, they brew their wine at home itself from the fruit juices, and it can be made from any of the fruits, whichever has very good sugar content in that fruit can be made, and it can have that different flavors. So for example, apple flavored or strawberry flavored, or even grape is the most common one that we know of. And brandy is again, actually brandy is also one of the good medicine for cold and cough, because it kind of helps to revive from cold and cough. It generates a lot of heat within the body. Barley malt for beer. Barley is a kind of bajra. Malt is again the fermented product of any grain, right? So let's say if you grind a particular grain, bajri, jowari, or any of those pulses, and if you keep it for fermentation, that is what is called as malt. Again, I would assume that you know this malt thing. So barley malt for beer production. But again, beer is can be produced by different starting products. One of them is barley. There is a wheat beer, there is a rice beer, there is barley beer, and so on. So there are various such options. Cereals for making whiskey, and molasses for making rum. uh, Whiskey is again very refined product. uh, Refined in the sense it has to undergo through quite a lot of process. Plus, the concentration of alcohol in whiskey, rum, brandy, and all of this is quite high. Lowest concentration of alcohol is in the beer, somewhere around 4 to 6%. Then comes to wine, which is little higher or can be same. Again, depends on how much fermentation has happened, how much of the alcohol has been produced, and so on. So that way the percentage will vary, but in general sense, beer and wine, they will always have less percentage of alcohol. Then the highest percentage is your brandy, rum, whiskey, vodka, and so on. And the extremely high percentage is present in the a drink called as absinthe. ABSYNTH. Absinthe is one of the very what we say concentrated alcohol. It's almost 70, like 60 and above percentage. Brandy vodka, whiskey, they have somewhere around 40%. More than 60%, it is usually an absinthe. So that way, there is quite a lot of difference. So, like I mentioned, this Japanese drink, rice is used for making sake, potato for vodka, and cashew or coconut for making feni or feni. Again, these are just different names. Feni is another alcoholic drink, which is, I don't know if we get it. Usually, you find this drink in the coastal region of India as well. So that is Feni. And this is actually a local drink. You don't find it, especially in Goa, you can find it. I don't know about the southern coastal regions, but in Goa, surely you find this drink. 1% malt or rhizopus is added to the nutrient medium having starch, which contains like either a cereal or potato. And because these produces little amylase. So what is done is usually 1% malt is prepared of any of this matter, whatever is going to be prepared. And rhizopus, which is one type of organism, is added to the nutrient medium. So let me show you the rhizopus. So it's a type of fungi, and again, I hope you would remember this. This is the kind of fungi which is called rhizopus. So that is used or that is added to the nutrient medium which contains starch from either of these things, that is cereal or potato. And because of this yeast or this rhizopus produces amylase, it will break down the starch content, it will produce glucose, and that glucose will be fermented, and that will be producing alcohol. Hydrolysis is carried out in separate tanks to moderate the temperature. So usually this hydrolysis process, that means the breakdown of the starch, is carried out at a little higher temperature for 30 minutes. That's again the procedure which is used to make this alcoholic beverages. Or even the crushed food mixed with hot water is like for obtaining the malt, and that is called as mash. So that slurry of the malt is called as mash, and the sweetened nutrient medium prior to alcoholic fermentation is called as wort. So that is just a different terminology. So let's say if you take some grains, you crush them, put it in hot water, ferment it for a while, that becomes malt. But before becoming a malt, that whole slurry is called as mash. And uh, as soon as the alcoholic fermentation start, before that fermentation has to start, the starch has to broken down into the sugar, simple carbohydrate, that is glucose or fructose. And once that glucose or fructose is present within the whole medium, that will be sweetened nutrient medium, and that is what is called as wort. So these are the different terminologies used. This is a kind of typical fermentation tank. Again, various sizes will be available, but this is how it would look like. It can come from a laboratory setup fermenter to even a large scale industrial setup where almost like you can 10,000s of liters of any of these alcoholic drink can also be prepared. So this is like a typical fermenter. If you look at the schematic diagram, this is the main body of the fermenter, which has these propellers or impellers. That means they are rotating structures. They have baffles, which is like a insulating point. And then on the side, if you want to cool down the whole system or increase the temperature, this U-shaped tube-like structure, that is what is used either to increase or decrease temperature. And then, of course, if you want to add something anti-foam agent, you have a special entry point, pH control device. That means to check the pH of the medium, because within the fermentation, pH is very, very important. If it becomes more acidic, that is like a sign of anaerobic what do we call fermentation. So, and that will not lead to the production of alcohol, but rather it will lead to the production of more and more acid. So that's when the pH needs to be controlled, and that is when you have acid and base to maintain the pH. So let's say the solution turns more basic, a little of the acid would be added to it. If the solution turns more acidic, a little bit of base is added to this whole solution. And of course, there are these two media, that is the nutrient medium, which is required for the growth of yeast or bacteria or whatsoever is used. And what is this? Inoculum. Inoculum is something like the starting culture of the bacteria. Like especially when we make a curd, we put a little amount of older curd into the milk and then we mix it properly. That's something like that is called as inoculum. And then at the end, what you have is the outlet. So once the fermentation process has happened, this will be acting as a filter, and this whole of this thing will be taken out from the outlet. So that is like a general outlay of the fermenter. There might be some certain questions which will be asked based on these design of the ferment. Okay, now whole of this fermentation process is called as bioreactor, or it is also called as fermentation tank. Tank, this is a simpler English terminology. Bioreactor specifically because it is reacting to the living organism, that's why bio, and it produces certain byproducts. So that is what is your ferment. It is usually sterilized with the help of steam under pressure. Now, before you conduct any microbial activity, the most important criteria is to sterilize that particular instrument. So in this case also, before we add anything from outside, right, it needs to be sterilized. Sterilized means it has to be like completely getting rid of all the microbes which are present from the earlier times. That is what is sterilization, right? So, and that is done with the steam under pressure. So that is one of the mechanism of the sterilization process. So there is like I guess gamma ray and UV ray sterilization. There is steam under pressure. There is hot air sterilization. So there are various mechanisms, right? One of them is using a steam under high pressure so that the temperature can be increased to a greater extent, which will ultimately kill the all the microbes present in that space before we start the actual fermentation. It's something like a pressure cooker, right? It's actually a pressure cooker. This what we call as autoclave machine, steam under pressure. So that autoclave or that steam under pressure is used to sterilize the fermenter, and the liquid medium or the work is added into the tank, which is sterilized, and then it is cooled down. So the liquid medium as in, so again, before we grow any bacteria into a liquid culture medium, we need to sterilize that culture medium also, because we never know that these culture medium itself have certain bacteria and they will start growing along with your yeast or along with your microbe that are of interest. So to avoid that process, everything is sterilized, including the culture medium, including the fermenter and so on, except the whatever inoculum that we are going to use. And then they are added, and then the whole process goes on. So the cooled liquid is inoculated, and that is the cool liquid medium is inoculated with a suitable strain of the yeast. So whichever, let's say I want to generate this beer, so I can use Saccharomyces cerevisiae and add it to the liquid medium, and that will fermentation will take place, and then we can process this fermentation product in 3 different ways. What we know of is batch process, continuous process, and the immobilized fermentation process. Batch processes, you like actually take out the whole lot. So a very large reactors, yeast is kept inside until alcohol content has reached to 6 to 12%, called wash. and then it is removed and tank is sterilized again for the next lot. So it's like happening in batch. One batch happened, again undergo the same process and then go for the next batch of fermentation. Second type is the continuous process, in which half a portion of the medium in the fermented product is removed at intervals and the fresh medium is added every time. So what happens is, it's like again how we make curd. We take some portion, we add it to the next completely fresh lot of milk. In this case, what they are doing is they are taking half portion of the fermentation broth, we call it, and the new fresh medium in half quantity is added to it, so that every time the fermentation has finished, half of it is taken, half of the fresh medium is added, and that becomes like a continuous process. Third one is the immobilized fermentation process. Now in this case, specific columns are used. Columns are these tube-like structures which have calcium alginate beads. Again, and these beads, they are having these yeast cells. So it's simple, like let's say if you take a tubular structure or a tube, you fill a sand in it, which is imitating the calcium alginate beads, and on the surface of the sands, they were already soaked with the yeast cells. So that is something like calcium alginate beads. They will absorb, not absorb, they will adsorb the yeast cells on their surface that will be filled into the column, and these columns are kept in the fermentation tank. And this technique is actually 20 times more efficient than any of the other process, because immobilized means non-moving. In this earlier batch and continuous process, the whole of the solution or the broth or the fermentation medium was moving. In this case, only the liquid outside is moving, but the yeast is immobilized onto the column on the bead surface. So that's why it is more and more efficient. So that is the whole of the fermentation process. Now, just to let you know, again, there were a few questions which were asked in the exam. There are two types of beverages, what we know as beverages made or prepared with distillation process and without distillation process. With distillation, they have to be transparent and more purified, plus more concentrated, because distillation itself means using the different boiling temperature, the liquids are separated. So when you are doing it, obviously alcohol has very less boiling point, so it will be distilling out first. So that's when all the concentrated drinks, that is whiskey, rum, gin, vodka, brandy, fenny, all of these, they are prepared with distillation. And without distillation, which still has certain amount of yeast present in it, that is beer and wine. So these are the two types of beverages. Any questions so far? Does anyone have any question? I might be rushing through it, but I guess it's just good that we get this done, because there is not much to explain as such, and most of it we would already. Have you learned fermentation before ever? Yeah. Oh, okay, then good. Okay, so now here I have nothing to explain as such. I have written extra specifically because I'm not too sure if these things will come, but still I have kept it here because I have seen question papers asking the antibiotic name and the source of that antibiotic, which is the name of the microorganism. So there is penicillin, obtained from Penicillium chrysogenum or Penicillium notatum, along with the phenyl acetic acid. So these are different sources. Griseofulvin is another antibiotic which is taken or obtained from the Penicillium griseofulvin. Most of the cases, you will find the name of the antibiotic within the what we call as the name of the bacteria itself. So for example, even this one, fumagillin, Aspergillus fumigatus, right? So these names, they will be present. Again, I don't know how to explain this thing. This is just kind of very mug up thing. Like you have to remember these names, and of course, like some of the basic symptoms which you would know of in terms of infection. And there are few more, like streptomycin from Streptomyces griseus, chloramphenicol or chloromycetin mycetin from Streptomyces venezuelae, and so on. So you just try to remember as much as you can. And like I said, the simplest trick is you find out the name of the antibiotic most of the times in the name of the bacteria, right? Bacteria or microbe, whatever it is, right? So like maybe you can go through it on your own and try and remember as much as possible. Most of these things, they are either asked in the fill in the blank type question, or what we call as match the pair, the name of the antibiotic and the name of the organism. That's where this would be asked. Okay. Now, so first thing we saw was the microbes in the beverages, that is alcoholic beverages, through the process of fermentation. Now we will look at the microbes in the organic acid. Now we know there are quite a few organic acids, for example, acetic acid and lactic acid, that we commonly know of, which are used in quite a few processes around us, like acetic acid for making of vinegar. Now you know the uses of vinegar as well. So this acetic acid is produced commercially from the fermented alcohol with the help of Acetobacter aceti. Again, like I said, the name of the compound itself comes in the name of the organism. So that way it becomes much more easier to correlate the name of the organism. So Acetobacter aceti is used in the production of acetic acid. So the reaction is glucose with the help of enzyme zymase, which is present in this microbe Acetobacter aceti. It will produce alcohol and water. Now same alcohol, again by the action of zymase complex, it will prepare or synthesize acetic acid and water. So that's how the reaction is. And again, in some cases they might ask you to write the reactants or products, or because this is just MCQ type of exam in the first semester. So there these kind of questions can come. So that is acetic acid. Again, you need to remember the name of the organism. Lactic acid, which is the second type of acid, it is obtained from starchy compounds, like for example, potato starch, corn, molasses, and this is and whey, and this is done with the help of bacteria. Streptococcus lactis. Again, the name lactis is for the lactic acid. So Streptococcus lactis is one organism. There is something called as Lactobacillus. Lactobacillus bulgaricus. That is another species which is used in the production of lactic acid. Again, the name Lactobacillus is common for lactic acid. And the fungi, that is the Rhizopus, which actually generates very high purity of lactic acid. That means, and that is when, like, if we need a very good purity of the lactic acid, it is mostly Rhizopus is used in the synthesis of lactic acid. It's also used in pharmaceuticals, like most of the syrup or your tablets, they contain lactic acid, depending on what is the need. Confectionaries, candies and stuff, or chocolates, or I don't know what not, all those confectionaries will have this lactic acid. Fruit juices, pickles, curing of the meat, that is almost making the meat cleaner and tastier. That process is curing. So in all these processes, lactic acid is used, which is synthesized or obtained from these different microorganisms. Again, the reaction here is, this is a disaccharide, C12, right? C6 is usually monosaccharide, C12 is disaccharide, which is lactose, right? Lactose in presence of water, that is by the mechanism of hydrolysis, addition of water, it is converted into two glucose molecules. And this glucose is further broken down to make this lactic acid finally. So this is the kind of intermediate we get. From this intermediate, upon the hydrogenation, what we get is this lactic acid, which is CH3, CH, then OH and COH. So four groups are attached to this carbon. One is hydrogen, hydroxyl, carboxyl, and methyl. So that is what is the structure of the lactic acid. Then there is citric acid. So in citric acid, uh, uh, like it is produced by the fermentation of this species called Aspergillus niger or Mucor pyriform on a sugary syrup. So obviously, most of the sugar syrup from the cane and beet molasses, they are being treated or they are being grown with these species. They will undergo fermentation and they will produce the citric acid. It can also be produced using yeast called as Candida lipolytica or lipolytica, either ways. So that is one of the species of the fungus, yeast. And is provided, provided it's deficient in the nutrient medium in the iron and manganese, because this particular yeast species does not grow well when this iron and manganese are present in the culture medium. When they are deficient, then this Candida lipolytica makes it more and more fermentation, so more and more citric acid. This citric acid is used in dyeing industry, engraving, like especially on the metal work, engraving, citric acid is used. Pharmaceuticals, again same, tablet, capsules and so on, or these liquid formulations. Inks, everyone knows, flavoring and preservatives for the food, that's where the citric acid is used. That's the general usage of the citric acid. So again, what you need to remember from this is what is the acid, what is the organism, and what is the use. Three things for each of the acid. Butyric acid, or also called as butanoic acid, it is used like from the fermentation of Clostridium butyricum. Again, the name butyricum is coinciding with this butyric acid. So that way easier to remember. Gluconic acid is prepared by the fermentation of, again, Aspergillus niger or Penicillium species. So in this specific case, whatever calcium gluconate is there, it is used as a wide source of calcium for infant. So usually that I forgot, Cerelac, right? That those kind of products which are given to the newborn babies, not newborn, but at least 6-month-old babies and above that, they contain calcium gluconate, which is a rich source of calcium. Also, it is given to cow or lactating mothers so that the milk secretion increases in them, and also used in pharmaceutical. So these are the various microbes, or these are the various acids which are synthesized or produced using the microbes. Okay, I guess we will finish these microbes in enzymes and then we will stop for today. So that was the microbes in the preparation or synthesis of organic acid. Now the microbes in the enzymes. Again, same thing you have to remember here. Name of the enzyme, organism, and what is the use of that enzyme. So you already know what enzymes are, which are proteinaceous substances capable of catalyzing biochemical reaction without undergoing any change. They do not undergo any change, but they catalyze the reaction. And that's why they are also called as biocatalyst. And this term was coined by William Koenig, the enzyme term. In long back, it's 1867. So the first enzyme which is most commonly used, synthesized from the microbe, is the protease, which is proteolytic enzyme, means protein or polypeptide breaking down enzyme. So these proteases, they are obtained from Aspergillus species or Bacillus species. Again, there are various Aspergillus nigrum, Aspergillus so and so. There are various species, Bacillus subtilis, Bacillus chrysanthemum. There are so many such species, and most of them they can be used for protease, because protease is a very famous mechanism of bacteria to protect from other protein molecules, and that's why the protease is in abundance with most of these microbial species, and that's why this Aspergillus and Bacillus they are used. And this protease is used in enhancing the tenderness of the meat. Meat contains lot of protein, right? And to if we use this protease like in the treatment of the meat, then the meat becomes a little tender, so that because the fibers they are broken down a bit, so that's why it becomes tender. Extraction of fish liver oil, so again the tissue around the fish liver oil is digested with the protease so that the oil can be extracted from it. Clarification or chill proofing of the alcoholic beverages. This is one of the very unique uses of the protease. So what happens is, even after fermentation, uh, and even if you separate the alcoholic content, there is lot of protein which is coming along with this extract. Now, to break down those proteins within that extract, protease that is used, so that whatever you get at the end is most of the alcohol, and the proteins they are already being broken down. Softening of the cheese and bread, again that is something similar to the tendering the meat. In synthesis of a glue, degumming of the silk, this is one of the process in the silk production. Before the final silk, like what silkworm will release certain thread like structure or certain chemicals, they are being treated in the hot water and so on, and there is one process called as degumming, where you have to remove the proteins from that release chemical of the silkworm. That is what is degumming. Cleaning of the hides, this especially the skins of the animals, that is what is hides, they are being cleaned with proteases. Again, there are so many proteins attached to the skin of the animals, and like if you don't treat it, then those whatever the product is going to become of those skins of the animal, that is hides, will get spoiled easily, and that's when the protease treatment is good. And of course, removing the proteinaceous stains from different objects. So that is protease. I hope I'm going at the okay speed and you are following it up. But if not, you just tell me. Lipase, which is the second enzyme, again the name itself suggests it is a lipid digesting enzyme. It is obtained from the Candida lipolytica. Again, remember the analogy of using the name of the chemical within the organism. Lipo means lipid, lytica means breakdown. So this is the lipase generating enzyme, sorry, organism. And there is Geotrichum candidum, that is another species which is used for the lipase production. What is the use of lipase? It is used in the flavoring cheese, hydrolyzing oils, for soap manufacture, and in the detergent formulation, because most of the detergents they need to break down the oil component, right, and also to remove the oily stain, and that's why the lipases are very, very useful there. Pectinase, this is obtained from the fungi grown on the pectin containing medium. That is what is pectinase, and the species is again Aspergillus niger and Bysoclamis fulva. That is the name of the organism. Again, if you want to look at the names and the characteristic of organism, you can go and look at it, but it's not really required at all. So pectinase is such enzyme which is used in clearing the bottled fruit juices, so that it will break down the pectin and make it into sugar-like molecules, so that these fruit juices they are more natural sweetener. Then retting of the fibers, when the retting in the sense cleaning of those fibers like whichever fibers in the sense of which are obtained from the plants or so on, that rating of the fibers uses the pectinase treatment. And the preparation of the green coffee. Now again, green coffee is kind of a type of coffee preparation method where pectinases are used so that the extraction of that coffee happens at the much earlier stages. That is pectinase. Amylase, if you remember, it is the starch digesting enzyme. So there is amylase, sorry, amylose and amylopectin. Two types of components are present in the starch. So that amylose is broken down by this enzyme called amylase, which is the component of the starch. And again, the organisms which contain this amylase is Aspergillus oryzae, Aspergillus niger, Mucor, and Bacillus subtilis. Different organisms. This amylase is used in softening and sweetening of the bread. Again, the same mechanism. Starch is there in the wheat from which the bread is prepared. That starch will be broken down into smaller sugar molecules like glucose so that the sweetening can happen. Also, starch is more like a insoluble fibrous molecule, and it becomes softened upon the amylase treatment because it is being broken down. Desizing fiber, same mechanism. Flavoring of the soft drinks, clearing of the starchy stains from utensils and clothes, that also uses amylase to remove these starchy stains. Then there is subtypes of amylase which are specifically called as glucoamylases or glucoisomerases. These are used in the conversion of corn starch into fructose, because the function of amylase is to break down starch into glucose or fructose. So specifically in the corn starch, which is rich in content of the starch molecule, fructose can be synthesized by the treatment of any of these enzymes. And since fructose is the sweetest of all the sugar, corn syrup is even sweeter than the sucrose solution. So if I give you sucrose solution and give you corn syrup, which is treated with this amylase or type of amylase, you will find corn syrup much more sweet. And also this is used in the sweetening and flavoring of the soft drinks, biscuits, and cake. Again, if you remember the name of the enzyme, you can probably easily figure out the use, and you can also write any general random use of these enzymes. And the last three of these enzymes, rennet, it is specifically an enzyme which is ruminating cattles they have. So the rennet is obtained from the stomach of the calf, and it contains the enzyme called as renin, which is used in the preparation of the cheese. So renin is actually a mixture of enzymes or complex of enzymes which breaks down quite a lot of product, and these are usually used in the preparation of the cheese, that is rennet. In terms of streptokinase, that is the next enzyme, which is also called as tissue plasminogen activator. If you again remember the clotting mechanism, plasminogen converts into plasmin with the action of streptokinase. Plasmin goes and acts on the fibrinogen, then it converts into fibrin, and that's when the blood clotting mechanism starts. So that is whole of the thing, and that's where the action of streptokinase enzyme comes into picture. So this is obtained from the hemolytic bacteria called as Streptococcus, one species of the Streptococcus. And after modifying genetically, it is used in clot for dissolving the blood clot in the blood vessels. So usually the streptokinase is injected at the site of the blood clot, so that streptokinase will activate the plasminogen, and then the whole of the process of the platelet mechanism will start. And this is usually done in a patient who had myocardial infarction, or what we commonly call as heart attack, because it mostly happens due to the blood clot. So that is streptokinase. And the last one is the protein modifying enzymes. Again, these are used to modify proteins. So there is already certain protein, like for example, pig insulin, the insulin which is obtained from the pig is converted into humulin by the action of protein modifying enzyme. Humulin is a kind of similar molecule to insulin, human insulin, that is called as humulin. So that is the protein modifying enzyme. Again, in the textbook, if you look, the spelling is written wrong. It is HUMI. So if that is the case, you correct it to humulin. Yeah, it is HUMU. Okay, so let me stop here. If you have any question, please ask. Otherwise, we will stop here for today.